So hello everybody, my name is Brian Ramsdale. I work in the marketing department here at the United Way of the Plains. I'm here today with Michelle Presnell.
Yeah, Presnell.
I told her I was going to mess it up. I'm still new here. We're still getting it worked out.
That's okay. I'll accept it. It's all right.
But we wanted to come to you today to talk to you a little bit about some of our financial stability programs that we have here at the United Way. That's Michelle's specialty as she came to the United Way. Tell us a little bit about your background while we get people tuning in.
Absolutely. So I came to United Way after a long stint in the financial world. I worked at a couple banks here in town for about 13 years. I hopped over into the nonprofit world a little over 2 years ago and have been with the United Way since September of last year.
Okay, and so with your experience, you've worked with financial institutions. What all did you kind of touch with in those sectors?
Yeah. So I really had an awesome opportunity during my time in banking. I did everything from sit across the desk from individuals and help them open up accounts, apply for loans, talk about maybe what they were wanting to do with their finances, and those sorts of things. I wasn't a financial advisor, but I always used to joke that the office, whenever you work at a bank, is kind of like the confession booth. People tell you a lot of things in there, and they do. They really talk about their lives. And then I also worked in the lending side of things, so I processed loans. I got to see a lot of people's financials, and I got to see a lot of people's kind of debt situation through there, and I learned how to analyze some of that. And then kind of towards the end of my banking career, I worked with a lot of businesses, so small businesses, and talked with them about, is it time to apply for a loan for equipment, or, are we in the best sort of account? So I really ran the gamut of what I got to.
But a great resource because now you know all these different ins and outs of these financial institutions and best practices. I mean, it's a huge sector. I mean, banking and credit and all of that, it plays into so many different quality of life figures that you can have.
Absolutely, and it's ever changing. It is one of those things that I learned something new all the time whenever I worked in banking. There was no day that was the same. And I would say that that's still the same way that I view a lot of it now. Even in my role here, well, actually, especially in my role here, we've gone through a crazy last couple of years, and our financial landscape continues to change in this country, and our economic landscape does. So, really, having that growth mindset or knowing that things are going to change is a big piece about financial stability.
Nothing stays the same.
Absolutely.
But what we're coming today talk about today is what you call the gap. It's people making between $45,000 and $55,000, and at face value, maybe somebody out of college or maybe a single parent that's working their way up the ladder. That sounds like a decent amount of money, but there's some pitfalls that come with that. Can you go over that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll tell you that whenever we say good money, I make good money. That's such a subjective thing to say. And the reason why I was really excited to talk about this gap is that these are the people that are working in the cubicle next to you. They are the people that, they go to work, they're dutiful individuals, they're single moms, they're sometimes dual parent households. Sometimes they're that college kid that has just graduated and lands their first job. So like you said, the gap is there, and there are a lot of people that fall in this gap. The reason why the gap exists is services that you can receive. There are a ton of them for people that are in crisis, right? So if you're going hungry or you're in fear of eviction or something like that, you can get a hold of our 211 program here, our call center here at the United Way, and get connected with a lot of resources. But your opportunity to access assistance, once you start to reach about the $45,000 threshold, starts to lower because the government assistance programs and even some other assistance programs here within our community start to taper off because you're not necessarily in crisis, but you're also not able to quite get ahead, right? So that's why that gap is there. And those things everything from emergency savings to home ownership to paying down your debt, whether it's student loan debt or credit card debt or anything like that. That's the gap where it's hard enough to meet your ends meet, but it's also becomes really challenging, and you have to be really purposeful about how you reach financial stability in that gap.
And you gave us some best practices to look over, and we're going to go through them real quick. And one of them that you said was take a good look at your finances and be honest with your budget? What does that exactly mean?
That is probably the hardest thing. So for people to make the first step to do, when we look at our money in a hard way and we really see what's coming in and what's going out, are we being honest to ourselves about what our needs are, and are we honest about maybe what our wants and our extra spending might be? Really working with a financial planner or a budget counselor, like Consumer Credit Counseling Services, who we're partnered with. They offer this as a free service. You can sit down and you can lay out your budget with somebody and you can say, okay, I know where I want to go. I always compare a budget with a forecast. This came from some really great teaching to me. A budget's a forecast. You want to know what's going to happen in your financial future, or where you'd like to go in your financial future, so you know how to set your goals for now. And you can't do that unless you actually know what's going on within your finances. So look at your statements. You know, a lot of the time we look at those recent transaction histories.
In and out.
And we're like, okay, I have money today, right? And like, I have money today and I have enough money to pay for the thing tomorrow. But do you know if you're going to be able to pay for something a month from now? You know, you have to, that's where that stability comes in. And that's where really taking a hard look at your finances and starting to lay out a plan and forecast for where you want to go.
And so when you start thinking about, you know, where you do want to go, how do you set a goal with that? Like, what's like one of the first things that somebody could do right now if they're watching this or they're listening to this and saying, okay, so, you know, I don't budget, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, I don't want to be there. What's an achievable goal for that person taking that first step?
Absolutely. So like we touched on, good money and financial stability is a little bit subjective, right?
Yeah.
There's some best practices in, you know, having 6 months worth of savings in your emergency, 6 months worth of income, should I say, in your emergency savings account, because Lord forbid that something was to happen and go catastrophically wrong with your job. Maybe you get sick, maybe you go on disability, something breaks. You want to have enough cushion there. There are some standards that we always strive towards, but where do I start? Because those seem really overwhelming sometimes. What I would say is start with small, achievable goals.
Okay.
When you look at your finances and you say, okay, I don't like living paycheck to paycheck. What's one paycheck to you? Maybe your paycheck is $1,000 every 2 weeks. And you're like, okay, I want to set out to save one paycheck. What do I need to do to save one paycheck? And that's where that first piece of really understanding your budget is. You know, maybe it's, I don't need to go get my nails done. Or maybe it's, I really want to, you know, eat better and eat healthy, but man, these groceries that I can get that are cheap are a little bit more accessible. Educate yourself on the community garden programs that are out there. You know, look into different ways to access food that is healthy for you. I can think of a lot of programs in our community that are community gardens. It's a great way to access healthy produce. Or maybe it's saving a little bit of extra money on your prescriptions. We have our single care cards that we give out here at United Way, and they can save you 80% on your prescriptions.
Okay.
Maybe it's even clipping coupons, right? I know that seems really old-fashioned.
So old-fashioned.
But
Get the scissors.
And I do digital coupons. So check out where you're at with like where you'd like to go to the grocery store at, and see if they have digital coupons and take advantage of it.
Do you have an example of like a digital coupon?
Yeah. So last time that I went to the grocery store, I saved about $45 because I had digital coupons. And that $45, you know, if you're looking at the grand scheme of things, you might go, oh, that's not very much. But imagine if you go to,
that's huge.
Yeah, if you go to the grocery store twice a month, maybe, if you're like me and I like wait until the last second to go to the grocery store, that's $50 a month almost. That's about a tank of gas, or half a tank of gas if you drive a truck like me. Yeah. So definitely it's those little bit of savings. And like I said, a budget counselor can help you identify where those are in your budget. But there are a lot of different ways to save money. And so you start to save little bits of money within your budget.
Gotcha.
And you reallocate those to making yourself more financially stable for the future.
Okay, so getting those first little goals, talking with the financial counselor is always a great first step.
Always.
There's some other areas that we wanted to talk about today, and that was investing in your retirement.
Yeah.
You said a lot of employers, they have match programs.
Yep.
But for a lot of people in that $45,000 to $55,000 range,
Yep.
they might not be thinking, I have that money to put into retirement.
Right.
So how do they navigate that?
So I'll kind of share a personal story with you, and with everybody. And my personal story is that even though I myself, I fell into the gap. Like whenever I had an awesome career, I loved my teammates, I loved what I did, but I fell into the gap. There was a period of time where I had a great job, but I was a single mom. And you know, I had some assistance, right? But it's still a struggle to pay for all of the different things you need to pay for. And one of the things that I did really dutifully was I kept giving into my retirement plan. And so whenever I went to go buy my first home, I took advantage of some tax options of being able to take money out of that if you needed to. And I had a down payment without overburdening taking out money out of my 401k. And it reduced my housing cost by half, right? Like I went from, it doubled my savings, right? And into buying a home. And I didn't have to touch my emergency savings. And since I had dutifully given into my retirement account since I was 18, because that's when I started doing it. Shout out to my mom for like educating me and telling me to always at least give the employer match. I had money in there that I felt comfortable. I'm, 30 years away from retirement. I have enough time to recuperate this. This is a good immediate savings I can have for myself.
So one thing you just touched on though right there was match your employer, or at least contribute to your employer's match. So if you go to your HR department and you start asking people about, hey, what does our retirement fund look like? And like, oh, well, we'll match up to X figure. You should take advantage of that.
You're leaving money on the table if you don't. So think of it as an instant raise. Because if they're going to match you money, so they say, okay, you put in 3%, that's still your money. Like it doesn't go away into an infinite void. If they're going to give you 3% of their money on top of what you're already saving, you just gave yourself a 3% raise. So, and not only that, but you're also saving for retirement. I cannot push this enough, right? Like I'm the 30-something that retirement feels far enough away, but my parents are in retirement, and I see a lot of other people who are coming close to retirement, and I've read a lot of studies on this that they didn't prepare earlier on in life, and now they're really regretting it. So if you're in that age group, if you're in your 20s and 30s, start thinking about that, because if not, you're definitely leaving money on the table.
I mean, I guess that does kind of raise a point. I mean, later in life, you start to encounter health issues. Maybe your plan was to work into your 70s and something came up, and that's why at least putting and matching that employee contribution, like you said, is leaving money on the table, which is a great way. I didn't think of it that way, so that's a great thought to have.
Yeah, and definitely I think that, I want to be really sensitive to the people that are getting really close to retirement age. And if you're really worried about that and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm going to have enough money, sit down with your advisor, go get a budget counselor, because avoiding it is not going to change it. So and that's with all of finance. If you just avoid the money because it makes you feel uncomfortable, or you feel, dare I say, ashamed. Whenever I was struggling, but I had a good job, I felt ashamed, right? Like I felt ashamed that I wasn't at the certain point that I needed to be. And I think that that's something a lot of people can relate with. Is that, and I've actually talked with people that's something that they can relate with. Don't feel ashamed about where you're at in your finances. I would say feel ashamed if you know where you're at and you do nothing about it.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't know where you're at, here's your opportunity. You've heard it here today. Here's your opportunity to take a hard look at it and then do something about it, even if it's small.
Yeah.
I encourage somebody to at least make a baby step.
Perfect. Next on our list, flex benefits.
Oh, yes.
And this has to do with healthcare, correct?
Yeah. So again, with the budgeting thing, this is probably a budgeting tip that I have found really helpful. And actually, in talking to some of my other my friends and other parents that I've been around, this is a budgeting tip. When you have kids, especially, you never know when they're going to get an ear infection or they're going to break a bone or anything like that. And this also can go for my people out there without kids. You don't know when you might get sick. If we've learned anything from the last 2 years, health is a fragile thing that we all need to take care of. So flex flex benefit is a way to have tax-free medical savings. Now, check with your employer about what your flex benefit involves and what the limitations are and all of those sorts of things, because I do not profess to be the expert.
There are some pitfalls with it as well. Like sometimes you can put the money in and it doesn't roll over, and then it's money just it's gone at that point.
And definitely, if there's anything, educate, and educate yourself on what is in your flex benefit. Now, there is a rollover amount, so check into that of what the rollover amount is. And I would say if you have a consistent prescription that you know you get every month, right? Maybe you take a diabetes medicine every month, and you know that that's a fixed cost. Use our single care prescription cards to cut down that, but you also know that that's something you're going to need to budget for. So put that money in your budget. Maybe you have a really expensive prescription that you take, and it's a struggle every month. There are a lot of people who really struggle with high prescription cost. If that's something that you know you can put into your flex benefit, it helps you with your budgeting every month because you know you don't have to try to find an extra $500 somewhere if it's in your flex account.
And because, think of the tax brackets at that point. I mean, if you're spending $500 a month on healthcare, prescriptions, whatever it is, well, 20% of your income that you're making right now, untaxed, just can go for. I mean, it seems like it's a smart thing to do when you have those large-scale purchases that you're expecting, and the dental care. You got to go see the dentist or the checkups or the labs. They always get you with the labs.
Always.
But is there like a minimum amount that you would recommend? Like, at what point do you kind of sit there and say maybe it's not worth it?
That's so subjective.
It is. Okay.
So. Here's what I'll say. So for me, this is what I did for me, and I'm not giving this advice to anybody else, just as an example.
Yes.
So whenever I did not have a strong emergency savings account, right? Like I was building myself up financially, and I was a paycheck to paycheck employee for a long time, and there are a lot of us out there. So again, don't be ashamed if that's you. But during that time, I was a paycheck to paycheck employee. And so what I did is I thought, okay, I know that I have, 2 dentist appointments a year that are covered, but I might have a small office visit. I know I'm going to have a well woman's. I know that I'm going to have a well child checkup for my son. I knew that I was going to have some of those things, but I also knew I did not have my deductible and savings. So I set aside my deductible.
Oh, okay.
And I used that in my flex benefit because I thought, oh my gosh, what happens if my son has sudden appendicitis and now I have a massive surgery bill? My deductible is what I need to be able to meet to be able to take advantage of a lot more of that insurance coverage.
And anybody that questions this, I mean, that's again where that counseling comes in.
Also talk to your benefits person at your employer, and talk with them. And they have so many different worksheets and charts and things that you can work through out there. The Bankrate is actually a really cool website to educate yourself about financial things.
Okay.
And I know that I use them a lot. But yeah, educate yourself about the Flex program. Talk to your benefits. Work it in with a budget counselor and see what might be best for you.
Okay. And moving on real quick to something that I found absolutely shocking, and that was the cost of childcare in the state of Kansas is like 3 car payments.
Yes, it's very expensive. So the average, this was the average that I quoted in you, and this one came from my friends at NPR and KMUW. They did a special on this, and my jaw dropped too, right? I'm a parent. I've been super fortunate to have a really wonderful grandma watch my son a lot of his young life, and so for me, it even made my jaw drop. The average cost of childcare in the state of Kansas for an infant annually is $13,000 a year. And now that's high quality childcare. And I put it that way because home services and your friends and your family that are watching your kiddo, that's needed, right? There's this definitely place for that. But whenever we get into like 1s and 2s and 3s and preschool learning and those sorts of things, there is an education component that goes into early childhood care that is super important for your kid and for their future and their impact on our future financial future.
And not only, are all these factors in play, there's the cost versus the benefit, but there's also just the open seats available in some of these child care facilities right now. That's also a struggle. And people who can call our 211 program, there's some existing programs for them. What are those?
Yeah, so like the YMCA is the first one that kind of pops up in my mind. And then the work that we're doing within the Wichita Collective Impact. So we have a cycle of funding open right now, which is the Wichita Collective Impact, where Cargill, the YMCA, WSU, and United Way of the Plains have teamed up to give some summer care programs to kids in 67214. Because we know that's an area that struggles with poverty, and they're having that struggle and that burden just as much as anybody, if not more so, right?
It's
because
affecting everybody. And the 67214 zip code, that is just northeast of downtown Wichita,
Yep, it's
right?
kind of Shocker neighborhood.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it's Shocker neighborhood, and they have the highest poverty rates in that area. But what feels incredibly unfair is to not give those kids a chance to have somebody look after them and engage with them over the summertime. And we can't discount the parents because they have to go to work, right? Like it's not a boo-hoo on anybody's parenting. They have to go to work to be able to feed their kids, right?
I mean, rent prices are high, food prices are high, gas prices are high.
Everything is high. And then when you are struggling financially, the stress and overwhelming situation of the cost of living today, especially in that bracket of people who are either in poverty and also those people that are in the gap, right? We talked about that 45 to 55. They're living in the gap. And for that income range, and maybe even above that, they need access to resources, especially for things like childcare and food and those sorts of things. And that's where 211, y'all, I can't talk about this enough. Our 211 program is so well connected in the community.
Yeah.
And you do not have to be in crisis to call them.
No.
Now, if you are in crisis, please call them because they are absolutely going to connect you to what you need help with. But even if you're not in crisis and any of this stuff sounds interesting, call them and see what resources there are out there.
Because you literally just go to your phone, you call 211, and we connect you with somebody.
Yeah, you can even text them.
That's right.
Yeah, you can. I got my little cheat. There is a text information on our website.
Yeah.
And you can even text them and ask, right? I think that, again, I go back to this. I've talked to so many people, even just really recently. I have a very dear friend of mine, and we had a super real conversation about where we're at as single parents, right? Now, we have I have really wonderful people in my life, and I have an awesome fiance who we work together on a lot of things. But, some people, they don't have that or they don't want that right now. They're happy being on their own and they want to be independent. So, but we still struggle sometimes, right? Like the reality is that when you're in that gap or you're in that income gap, you struggle. A lot of people do.
And I think that there's been a conversation shift that's happened a little bit. It used to be very you just don't talk about that type of thing. Right. And now we all kind of have this commonality. We can go to the gas station, we can see the prices are up above $3. We can go to the grocery store and we start to have those conversations and we realize that there are a lot of people impacted by not only inflation, but just general life costs that existed before everything shot sky high.
Yep. And that is very true. I think out of the COVID season that we've all struggled through, right, there's this level of genuineness and transparency in the human condition. And it's okay to struggle because all of us have struggled at some point in time, or the majority of people, right? Maybe not the top 2%, but the majority of people have struggled at some point in their life, especially financially.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, keep saying, don't be ashamed. Find resources. Don't avoid it. That's another big thing I see people do is they get overwhelmed by it.
Turn a blind eye to it. Doesn't exist. I don't see anything.
Yeah, exactly.
But it does exist. And
Yep, it does. Absolutely does.
Okay. And speaking of, you go to the grocery store, you start to see the produce section shooting up a little bit. There was something that you pointed out was community gardens and food plans that are available to our community here.
Yep.
I've heard about community gardens. They're like little neighborhoods get together. They get a parcel of land that maybe has been vacant for a while, and they plant a garden, and they allow the community members to come in and they tend to it, and they walk out with fresh vegetables and fruits and whatever it might be. So when you look at that, you're like, oh, that's great for the community. It's a good way for you to get to know your neighbors, but it has a benefit beyond just the getting to know it. There's actually cost benefit to it.
Yeah, so there's cost benefit on a couple of different ends. So even like I could kill grass, so I should not. Now, my fiance is a fantastic gardener. I can only grow like a couple of things.
Aloe?
An aloe?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm a succulent person. I can do
okay,
all
good.
the succulents. Things that
We're on the same page.
Things that you remember to water after you've forgotten to water.
Yeah,
right?
perfect.
But no, and so even if you are not a gardener, a lot of these community garden programs are run by local nonprofits. And so I'm thinking of one in particular that has a community garden. It's called Legacy Works, and they have kids that are that help. It's some good work experience for them. They come and they work the garden, and then they do a farmers market. And so they sell at the Old Town Farmers Market. And that money, it's so much cheaper to buy to buy produce from them. It's grown locally, and whenever you're buying that, you're giving back to the nonprofit. So, and they're not unique in this only way. Now, they're unique in some of their program structures, but as far as that model goes, I know that our North End friends have a garden as well. So there are a lot of community gardens that work off of that model. Cancel has a community garden as well. So you can get your produce for a lot less expensive, and now if you're willing to put in some sweat equity, you can go in there and really get it for free.
And something that I found really interesting, just the other day, we were at one of the area schools overseeing a project, and they were doing this like reduce, reuse, recycle model, and I was starting to think about it. I'm like, these kids are getting ideas that maybe the parents don't have about ways that they can contribute, like those community gardens, like plants that they could easily grow. So maybe a good time to consult with your kids, or maybe talk with the teachers during one of their parent-teacher conferences and say, hey, what programs do you have coming up where we can, kind of partner with each other on that, and they can bring the skills home from school, and we can, have a good, bonding moment.
Absolutely, definitely. The schools are really plugged in that, and I know I'm beating the drum a little bit more, but call 211. They'll tell you, like I said, you don't have to be in crisis to call 211. And so you can call them, and they have contact information of the community gardens that are ran by local nonprofits, or at least the ones that we know about. If you're listening and you're one of those and you are not on our list, give us a call and let us know. And then also, I know it seems like something we should all know, but engage on social media. Like whenever you're looking on social media and you're looking at events, engage on there and see the community gardens in your area. Maybe you don't know your neighbors super well, so get to know your community. See where your place is in town, and see if you have one near you. I have one just up the road, about 3 blocks north of me. It's a community garden, and I did not know that until I got engaged on social media. And it's literally 3 blocks north of me. I should be able to drive by it and know.
And now you have basil, and you have tomatoes, and all this other good stuff.
I have access to all of those sorts of things.
That's fantastic. And you also wanted to bring up something about clipping coupons. We talked about it briefly in your story. There's still the newspaper, and I think they still put some coupons in there.
They
but
sure do.
I'm trying to think of some other places that somebody might be able to find coupons. Like signing up for digital newsletters could be a good option. What are some other areas that you might be able to recommend?
One of the things I have found is that whenever you're a busy working person, you don't always spend those extra 5 minutes to do something, right? Because you're just like, I gotta go. I gotta get the grocery store. I gotta get milk.
5 minutes is hours in parent time.
Yes, absolutely. But what I have found, so I use Dillon's is where I go. They have the digital coupon section, but you actually have to go in and clip the coupons in the digital coupon section. Now, they get all the other like Dillon's Plus stuff that you can, that it's just instantly loaded onto your card. But they do have the digital coupon section that you have to go in and choose them. Take the extra time to go in and choose the coupons, right?
Yeah.
And I know that seems really small, but that can save you money.
Well, and that plays into the budgeting thing of it all as well. I mean,
Yeah.
a shopping list in essence is nothing more than an essential budget.
Yeah, and
So-
like Aldi's, you can get their newsletter or their like weekly sales thing on your email. You can go to their website if you don't want to subscribe to anything. You can go check out their website. Like I live in kind of the downtown area. So my nearest grocery stores are Dillon's and Aldi, and so those are the two that I use. And yeah, I kind of look at each of those and see which one has maybe a little bit better deal, and I go there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that idea. I mean, it's one of those things that you can even boil it down one more level where you could start planning to eat even a little bit more healthy by picking some of
Absolutely.
these items. So,
Yeah,
which is
I mean-
kind of cool when you think about it. It's like,
Yep.
okay, I can plan a meal here, coupon, and I just saved a bunch of money doing it.
Yeah,
So-
and that's probably where the budgeting stuff gets into play because I know that whenever you're working a lot of hours, the last thing you want to do is come home and like cook an extravagant meal. I'm a foodie person, but even then, like I like to pretend that I'm a chef sometimes on the weekends, but that's whenever I have time to do it, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of us get really busy, and so what's the easiest thing to go to is Easy Mac and a thing of ground beef, right? Lord knows I lived off of that for a while. But meal prepping a little bit, writing down what you're going to eat for the week gives you a better idea. It makes you shop smarter. It makes you eat healthier. All of those sorts of things.
Awesome.
So yeah, definitely getting a good handle on your groceries because that is a big cost burden right now for a lot of people. And how you spend that money is
Navigate
important.
that, absolutely.
Yeah.
The last thing coming up is one that people probably aren't thinking about right now, mostly because they're not seeing the price. The one place we're not seeing the price increase, right? Your utility bills.
Yeah.
So it's not summer, we're not running the air conditioner. It's not winter, we're not running the heater. So we're seeing somewhat low energy bills right now. But you said there's some averaging programs that when it comes to really making yourself financially stable do have a benefit for some people.
Absolutely. So there's a couple different things around this. So our big two ones here in the Wichita area are, Evergy and Kansas Gas Service. Check with them. You can do it online. You don't have to call anybody. You might call them just to ask. But as far as a budgeting tool goes, if you get to Christmas time and your gas bill, like me, goes way up because it's December, man, that's a burden, right?
Yeah,
like you're
it's
like, man,
huge.
I want to spend money on gifts and those sorts of things.
I mean, we can see swings of hundreds of dollars
Yeah.
depending on the type
Yep.
of household that you have, from not using your appliances to having to use them for basic needs of staying warm or
Absolutely.
staying cool.
Absolutely. So if you are, wanting to get a better handle on your budget, and that's kind of one of those baby steps you can take, look at the average payment plans and see if it doesn't detriment you anything to be on the average payment plan. It just is a budgeting tool to help you know what's kind of
And
coming
so
up.
what that does is it takes, your yearly energy
Mm-hmm.
usage, instead of looking at it month to month, they calculate it all over that 12 month.
Yep.
They just divide it by 12, they average it out.
Yep, exactly.
So you pay $300 during the summer, $100 during the fall. You kind of balance that out a little bit, where
Yeah.
your payment would be somewhere around like $200, right?
Yeah, definitely.
That's rough math. Don't quote me on the math there, but it's taking the high and taking the low and balancing them. So
Yeah.
you can budget at that point. You know, I'm going to spend this amount each month on this bill, because that's one of the ones that swings. It's like your gasoline in your car. You kind of have a rough idea on how much you're going to spend. It's your utility bills that
Yep.
can swing so much. That's a good way to get a grasp on that.
Absolutely. And what I will also say is if you do run into an emergency situation and you had a medical bill, you had something break, or you had something go catastrophically wrong, right? And you're now sacrificing, okay, am I going to be able to pay my bill, or am I either not going to have electricity? Get a hold of 211 because there are utility assistance programs out there, and even working with your utilities provider can help remedy some of that. So instead of running and putting that bill on debt, or not paying it at all and risking hurting your credit, definitely look at the resources before you just don't pay your energy bill.
And that does bring us back to the last thing I want to talk about, and that is our 211 service that we have here at the United Way. You see the commercials, you've heard it, it's probably engraved in your brain at this point, call 211.
Yeah.
But I think there was kind of a misconception at some point that, it was for people in crisis. But it really is a benefit towards so many people in our community.
Yeah.
So what are if somebody was needing help getting financial counseling, they could call 211. They would talk to somebody who could help get them in touch with a financial counselor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So the benefit of 211, because we serve a broad county area, and I'm sure that some of my friends that are not in the Wichita region that might be checking out this Facebook Live. 211 is a statewide, national. It's countrywide. Supported. Now, here at United Way of the Plains, our 211 service actually supports the entire state of Kansas. So if you're watching this and you're like, oh, I want to call them so I can get in touch with those resources, they know how to get a hold of the resources in your area. They have an extensive database so that they know where's somebody that's close to you that can help you with this.
Gotcha.
So if you're watching this and you happen to be out in Dodge City, call your 211 and we're going to see if there's a place out in Dodge City that can help meet your need.
That's great.
Yep.
That's great.
Yep.
So don't just think Wichita, think statewide.
Yep. So that's one of the big benefits that I really get excited about with 211 and the whole United Way network, right? The idea that United Way is there to help our communities no matter what community we're in. And that we band together underneath that 211 service. Like I said, United Way of the Plains supports the 211 service for the entire state of Kansas, but especially for our folks here in Wichita, we have a lot of really good connections.
Michelle, thank you so much for coming and talking about this. We covered such a wide area today.
Did, yeah.
But thinking about the large number of people that live inside the Gap, which I've never heard it called the Gap, but it makes perfect sense. Yeah. You're right above where benefits start to taper out, but you're not at that point where you feel solid. So having some best practices in there is great. If you have any questions, 211 is your answer. You can ask to talk. Well, I don't know that you can ask to talk to anybody, but but you can definitely hop on here and talk to somebody on one of our staff, and they can get you in connection with some great resources. We will monitor this feed after it's live. If anybody has any questions, anything super, super specific, we can get you hopefully in touch with the right person. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
And
Thank
we'll
you,
hopefully bring some of these back. We got some more ideas. We were talking about mortgages a couple days ago.
Oh, yeah.
And
housing.
My mind was blown with some of the information she
We'll save that for another Facebook Live.
That's a totally different Facebook Live. But again, thank you, everybody.